In today's video, we're going to be having a quick look at viruses around the globe. We're also going to have a look at Hertz and what's going on with their share price. And of course, I'm going to take a quick look and a review of last week's price action. Hello and welcome to another acysecurities market update. My name is Alistair Schultz and I'm going to be your host through today's trading journey. The first thing to have a look at is something we don't do all that often anymore, but we were doing regularly. At the moment, we've got a virus update for you. Right now, we have 7.9 million cases across the globe, with more than 426,000 deaths so far, and 3.7 million people have recovered. However, there has been rising concerns about having a second wave, particularly in the US with all the riots going on, and of course protests, and now we have some reports about some being in China. In Beijing, they've entered lockdown again. There are 10 provinces that are part of this area in Beijing, where lockdowns have been put in place. Approximately 10,000 people at this point have got restricted movements. Now, the new outbreak has occurred in Beijing's largest fruit and vegetable supply center. We've also seen it's the highest reported amount of infections since April, with 38 local cases. Of those, 36 happen to be in the epicenter in Beijing. We've also got, with these 10 local districts that have entered into lockdown phases, reduced activity with restaurants being closed down and bars and pubs and clubs as well. So there is concern around this idea. We've also seen a little bit of difficulty in the New York situation, particularly in Chinatown. The rest of the US side of New York has seen restaurants and businesses opening up in the vicinity of the 60% range, but Chinatown remains subdued with about 40%. Naturally, this is a big problem for the Chinese community in New York, only because they do run a great deal of restaurants in the particular area of Chinatown, and without the tourism, which they so much rely on, they're not going to get the same levels of business occurring. Now, beyond that, we've obviously still got some concerns. We're seeing higher numbers of infections occurring across the US, particularly in Florida and California, and it is going on with this idea of there being worry for the rest of the economy. Now, a lot of states have sort of been put in this position now where they can't afford to enter another stage of lockdown. So definitely it's something to keep an eye on as to how they're going to respond and what's going to happen to these communities and economies across the globe. Now, a quick look at Hertz. Hertz has been one of the weird ones of the year so far. Just when we thought they were about to go completely bankrupt and they filed for a Chapter 11, we saw a great deal of speculative investors putting their money into Hertz, and which we have seen them actually double their stock price at some point, going nearly past $5. Now, let's keep in mind, this is a company that is currently bankrupt, and they are having their stock prices run very high. Wanting to take advantage of the situation, Hertz has actually looked at a new stock release up to a value of about $1 billion. So naturally, if they can get those on board, then it might mean that they don't go bankrupt, or at least when they do finally go all the way through with it, that they have less money to pay out in owings and liabilities. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that one. I don't think it's going to be a stock pick for many, purely because it is a bankrupt company offering more stock. It's not exactly the safest play of the week, but who knows? These days there are some crazy things happening in financial markets that you would usually not expect to invest in. Now, having a look at what's gone on in the past week, we have a variety of different things that have really impacted price. Naturally, the S&P 500's fall of about 6.1% is the leading one, so I didn't want to put that out on the chart because it's pretty obvious to see where it's gone on. This is an Aussie dollar chart, not so much an S&P, but still the effects still can be seen on there. Now, the big ones that we've really been noticing throughout the week have been stuff to do with either Trump or it's come across from some sort of monetary policy, with the FOMC announcements on their expectations for the rest of the year and what they are expecting into 2022 being probably the biggest part of the news during the week. We've also had some minor things coming out from the Bank of England, the ECB and Japan, but on the whole, it's been pretty subdued for the news this week, with the other sides of things being a little bit more obvious with the S&P 500. Now, the other part that I've marked out for some of you technical analysts out there, I've noticed that there are 3 different patterns that have occurred in price in the past week. We've seen 2 imperfect patterns, being an imperfect double top twice over, and we've also had a double top that did play out and reach its 100% target. So if you were wondering if they are still affecting price and if they are still useful, the answer is yes. You can see them on the chart behind me. Now, of course, if you do want to freeze the screen and have a quick look, it's probably worthwhile doing. Having a bit of a Google on what some of these events actually are. It should be pretty easy for you to quickly put them into Google and get a much better understanding of what is going on in the financial world right now. Now, the last thing to sort of look at today is the scheduled news. We have Eurostat trade balances coming out. Now, please bear in mind that the Eurostat trade balance for the Eurozone is usually less impactful than the German and the French because they are 50% of all trade that sort of goes through Europe effectively. So we do tend to see a little bit of a less impact when it comes to the Eurostat trade balances. Now, we've also got Canadian manufacturing sales figures coming out, US Empire State manufacturing figures coming out, and of course, we're also going to be hearing from FOMC member Kaplan. So I wouldn't be unexpected to see him talking about the economy as a whole and what the Fed might be able to do about it from a fiscal side if they can actually convince the politics to happen. Now, if there's anything from today's video or perhaps some of my other videos that you've enjoyed, would like to get in contact with me about, or maybe you just simply have a question, please feel free to shoot me an email at talk2al@acy.com. And of course, like and subscribe to the videos to get more great content from me and ACY Securities in the future. Have a great trading day ahead.